Good evening, everybody. My name is Michael Uyghur. I'm the Chief Executive of the Board of Deputies, and I really appreciate everyone coming out this evening. I very much appreciate all the candidates, both the presidential candidates for the board who are sitting at the table and the vice presidential candidates who are sitting among you. I'm very appreciative of the tech team who have been helping us and are filming tonight. And also, I don't know whether CST are here, but I know there's a security guard outside. Is CST here as well? Or just a guard, so I really appreciate the guard. So thank you all. The format for the evening is pretty simple. First of all, let me thank Philip, who I know all of you know. Philip stepped in at the very last minute. Nicola had a reason she couldn't be here tonight. I'm really grateful for Philip, who is going to chair the hustings. He's had very little time to prepare, so he will be kind to us, and we will be very, very kind to him. Each of the candidates will speak for 90 seconds in an order that was preset by a random number generator. That's been done. So after they've spoken for 90 seconds, and Sarah at the front will be sort of controlling the time with them. There'll then be a chance both for Philip and most importantly for all of you to ask any question that you would like of the candidates. In about an hour's time, that will finish. The presidential candidates will sit down, and the 5 vice presidential candidates will come up, and we'll basically do a very similar process. And we'll have you out of here at 9:30. And that's the process, and it's really great you are here. This is important because this is the board's democracy in process. Right? The board is not unique in the world in electing democratically, but in the Jewish world it's pretty unusual. And we run a really, really thorough, transparent, open democratic process. And the people who are standing for president, people who are standing for vice president, have put their heads above the parapet and are prepared to go through quite a grueling process, which started a few days ago and will go on until May the 12th. And you being here tonight, you are part of the board's democratic process, and that's a really great thing. So with no further ado, I'll hand over to Philip.
Good evening. It's great to see you all here. As Michael said, I've parachuted in at the last minute. Not only is Nicola unwell and sends her apologies, but the Vice Chair of ScoJeC, Tim Lovett, has spent the whole day on jury duty. So though he's here, he's not doing this because he would find them guilty. So without further ado, we'll now try and follow the format that I've been given. And as Michael said, there has been a random number generator used, and Sheila is on her feet to do she's got number 1 position. Over to you, Sheila.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Sheila Giewolb, and I'm very proud to be standing to be President of the Board of Deputies of British Jews. Okay. I have been Vice President, Senior Vice President, and now I have, for the last 3 years, been chairing the board's Outreach Education Working Group. In a personal capacity, for over 40 years, I've been travelling all over the UK, speaking to thousands of non-Jewish school children to explain about our practices, our beliefs, and our culture to help dispel the myths and misconceptions that can lead to Jewish race hate. Sometimes I come across a young person who proudly declares that they're part Jewish. And that's wonderful. But then they tell me since October the 7th, when they visit London, their parents tell them, don't tell anybody you're Jewish because there'll be trouble. It breaks my heart, and it has to stop. The board needs to do so much more to defend and protect our community. As president, I would have 3 priorities. Firstly, we need to challenge the lies and the biased reporting we see and hear every day on our TVs and in the media. What are we afraid of? Who are we afraid of? Let's use our loud voice. Secondly, we need to educate about being Jewish and about Israel. And thirdly, let's use all the skills and experience of all the amazing deputies to get this work done, to be loud and proud about being British Jews. Thank you.
The random number system seems to have been very generous, as it has put the 2 ladies first. So over to Amanda.
I'm Amanda Bowman, and I want to be your president and build a stronger, more united community that celebrates and supports our rich diversity and heritage. As your vice president for the last 6 years, I've been honoured to serve you, earning your trust and securing the welfare of our community. As your president, our Board of Deputies will tackle immediate threats head-on and will empower both deputies and communities to shape a vibrant Jewish life in the UK. At a time when risks to social cohesion are so great, when events in Israel and Gaza feed polarisation here, I'll continue to protect the freedoms, rights and security of British Jews. The anti-Semitism you've witnessed here at universities in Scotland over the last few months has been shocking. And I commit to be more present for you, to listen and help you to do what's necessary to rebuild our community's trust with public bodies. While the temptation may be to hunker down, I want us to look outwards, beyond our community, to build bridges across faith groups, across our communal organisations, and of course across all deputies, to deliver our work strategically in a spirit of openness, transparency and respect. There are many different ways to lead, and my approach is one of collaboration. I've involved deputies in everything I've done so far, and I'll continue to do so. So I ask you to back me for a better board, build a future where our Jewish identity flourishes, where our voices are heard, and where our community stands proud and strong.
Thank you, Amanda. And now we move on to Phil.
Hello, I'm Phil Rosenberg. Good evening, everybody. We know that we face an unprecedented challenge in terms of the massive rise in anti-Semitism against the backdrop of Israel's war of defense against Hamas. And here we've seen it particularly with the big protests in the city centre and the election of Ghassan Abu Sitta, a man who's praised terrorists as rector of Glasgow University, and I'm hearing about the latest madness at Glasgow City Council. But this community has not taken that line down. I really want to pay tribute to Sammy and Vicky and Glasgow Friends of Israel for their stand at Buchanan Street and representing there. But also importantly tonight at Calderwood Lodge there's a celebration of Jewish future. I think that's really important. I want to mirror that around the country, and that's why this week I've launched 10 pledges for regional communities, which means in numbers, an £100,000 a year fighting fund to support Jewish activism right around the UK. It means 200 copies of our Jewish Living Experience exhibition so that every institution in the Board of Deputies around the country can involve itself in education to fight anti-Semitism and build bridges of understanding. And it means the empowering of our 300 deputies so that each and every one of them gets to know their local MPs, their local councillors, their local faith leaders, and their local media so that we can scale our activism across the country. As president of the board, I will enhance the board and the community's reach, relevance and impact right around the UK, and that's why I ask for your vote on the 12th of May. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. And last but not least, Michael.
Thank you. Deputies, ladies and gentlemen, we're in the fight of our lives to ensure British Jews can continue to live without fear in the country. We must continue to flourish, contribute and play our part in civil society. The frightening challenge of the rise of anti-Semitism shown by the swastikas on London's Saturday March and the continued attempts to disrupt our daily activities has to stop. The cost of living crisis hit our community hard, leading to real poverty in many areas. This is a time for outstanding, experienced and real leadership. My style is to listen, embrace and lead from the front. In the last year, I travelled to 200 shuls, many in the regions, hearing a range of opinions. I grew up in Leeds. My grandfather, Jack Morrison, represented this community 90 years ago at the Board of Deputies. I'm deeply dedicated to communal life across the regions and will continue to listen, reflect and represent your views. I've met outstanding deputies with great skills. They need to be involved and empowered. We need to be an inclusive anti-Semitism programme of every aspect of life and have a plan in place with people to manage it. Now is a time to stand up and not cozy up. With your support, I want to lead a team which harnesses the energy of all our deputies, defends our right to live peacefully and pushes back against the worrying levels of Jew hatred. Thank you.
Thank you to all the candidates for managing to keep to the 1 minute. I know you've been practicing in other towns, so... Sorry, 90 seconds, sorry. Now, I don't need to take chairman's privilege here. I've been told I'm allowed to ask a couple of questions. I'm going to ask one question anyway at the moment. In delivering the worthy aspirations that all the candidates have put forward, I wonder how they can strengthen their working relationship with the Scottish Council of Jewish Communities, which represents Scottish Jewry alongside the board representing UK Jewry. Now, sorry, we will now do this in order. So we're going to go Amanda, Sheila, Phil, Michael, and we'll rotate round the order for each question.
Okay, so the question is strengthening relationships with ScoJeC. Well, I think I've got quite a good relationship with ScoJeC. I'm very lucky in that Ephraim Borowski is the vice chair of the committee that I run, the division, the defence division. And so Ephraim's voice and the voice of Scotland is fed straight into the work that we're doing on defence, which when we talk defence, we're talking about the work we do to tackle anti-Jewish hatred, racism of all kinds, and of course the protection of our Jewish freedoms. And so we hear the voice of Scotland. Of course there's more that we can do, and of course there's more and better that we can do. But my division has always been really supportive of Ephraim's and ScoJeC's work, and we really value and learn from the success that ScoJeC are having. And so I would aim that we would do even more and support even better.
Thank you. Sheila?
Yes, thank you. From another devolved community in Cardiff, I appreciate very much the work that goes on here in Scotland, and I appreciate actually Scotland's more independence, I think. I know I do a lot of work with the education, and it's all England and Wales, and it is slightly different here in Scotland. And what I would like to see from an educational point of view is more working. You have a different system of RE syllabi, the way it's set in Scotland. And again, picking up on what Amanda said, yes, we need to speak more. We have Jewish Rep Council meetings. We support each other. But this particular element of our work does not involve Scotland. And I would like to see much more collaboration with Scotland and England and Wales, because you don't have the SACRE system of RE setting. As I say, I would like to see that much more developed. Whatever the outcome of the election, I would like to see more of that.
Thank you. Phil?
Thank you so much. Well, if ScoJeC didn't exist, you'd have to invent it. And we're really lucky, and I thank Ephraim and the whole team for everything that they do. You know, we are really lucky to have a body that works on the devolved matters, and I know we've worked really well on some of the reserved matters together as well, not jumping in, but led by where ScoJeC asked us. And just to give a few examples, we worked together on the first ever manifesto for the Scottish parliamentary elections. We've had meetings together with the First Minister, meetings with the SNP leader in Westminster. We worked together on pushing back the Church of Scotland in some of the challenging things that it did, particularly after the inheritance of Abraham. And there's a lot more where that came from. You know, the £100,000 a year fighting fund, obviously this is something that I would hope that in Scotland there'll be advantage taken of. The Jewish Living Experience exhibition, I hope there'll be a few of here in Scotland that we can work on together. And empowering all our deputies to make sure that each and every one of our deputies is playing their part in making the advocacy case that we want to make. We're lucky with institutional bodies like ScoJeC. We want to support ScoJeC and other bodies like that and raise the tide and raise the voice for Jewish communities in this country.
Thank you. And Michael?
Thank you. As part of my plan, I intend to have 3 new groups set up. One is a President's Advisory Group, one is a COBRA Crisis Planning Group to make sure the community never gets caught out again, and finally a Media Response Group. And what I want to do is to make sure that there's a representative from ScoJeC on each of those groups. I want to make sure that we've got proper Scottish representation, proper regional representation on all the committees that we have in the organisation. So that is a really important part of driving the change in the board and bringing people and getting them involved. Thank you.
Thank you all. I will take the opportunity to use my second question as a follow-up to those responses. They're very laudable and aspirational, but they require ScoJeC to be here, to be present, and to be delivering. I don't think it's a secret that recently we asked the board to offer financial support to ensure that that can happen. Bearing in mind that Ephraim, who you've all spoken so eloquently about, has been the volunteer director of ScoJeC for 25 years. I don't think Ephraim will mind if I say he's not getting any younger. And but he's not irreplaceable. But you're not going to get another volunteer to do that work. We have to find a way of funding a director for ScoJeC. If you want us to be here to do all these laudable things, do you think that under your presidency you'll be able to support us financially?
Who do you want to respond first?
To
the room.
Sorry, is it me?
Yes.
Okay, so I've not been party to any of these discussions because I've not been on the executive for the past 3 years. It is a fact that all the deputies are volunteers and some have done it for even longer than 25 years. But yes, we do need to support you. Yes, we do need to have some reciprocal arrangement, but we can't just hand money out. I think we need to look at how we're supported by the community in Scotland through the community contribution and other ways that you can support us and our work for us to support you. And there are other ways we can support you as well. You know, it's not just about money, it's about resource. And the staff, we have 2 members of the board staff working, 3 members actually, if you count Janine in Pukuach, in Manchester. And, you know, there are ways we can support you without actually handing over loads of cash. Okay, thank you.
Phil?
So I was involved in some of those discussions. I must say we got so close. I think we were talking about an annual grant or something about 50 grand a year. I can't remember the exact number. And we just couldn't quite get there. And it takes different parties to make a deal. And, you know, the paperwork is still there. And maybe that can be revisited. But what I'd say in the meantime is I've already costed out giving this support right and around the country. There will be some money available, at least in the first full year of the term, to be able to start looking at projects together. That's the starting point, and let's look at how we can build. You know, as I said, we know that if we didn't have ScoJeC, we'd need to invent it. So let's build that partnership up. Let's see what we can do. You can do quite a lot with a little. We've already seen it with, with what you do at ScoJeC. So let's continue to develop that partnership and grow stronger and stronger together.
Thank you. And Michael?
So this is quite an interesting discussion as far as the financials are concerned. What I would see happening is trying to get more communal contributions from the community, and as part of that, come to some way of apportionment between making sure the money remains in Scotland and that which goes to Board of Deputies generally. And that's one of the ways we could look at, together with looking at fundraising, which is very important for project work. When we have specific projects, it's much easier to go and fundraise against that. So I see that as being very important as well. Obviously resource, and then trying to see what we can do to help with resource. One of the things I want to do is to get top-class Israeli speakers coming over to the communities, and in particular the smaller communities. I, like you, am a regional player originally, although I now live in London. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Amanda.
Thank you. I'm a collaborative kind of gal, and so partnership is my watchword. And I think that over the last 6 years working with Ephraim, we've built up quite a good partnership. What's absolutely clear is that we can't do things for Scotland from London. For ScoJeC to do its work effectively, it needs to be done from here with a Scottish person who understands the Scottish system and can talk to your Scottish stakeholders with a Scottish perspective. My perspective would be that we would work together to raise the funding. I'm not saying that there won't be funding coming from the board, but I think we'll be stronger, all of us, if we identify things that we can do together that work for all of us, and that we raise the money together to support the work that needs to be done here.
Thank you. Right, it's now your opportunity to ask questions. So can we have...
That one there.
So,
Yeah, I'll stand up. Adam Lewis, I'm chairman of Glasgow Jewish Community Trust, who, and I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, we're probably the largest donors to ScoJeC and the Rec Council. Indeed. And it was a very apt question that you asked, Philip, because I must say I came along here this evening and it's great to see your boards on the side, the board of deputies of British Jews, and it's great to hear the words that you're saying, but they haven't translated at all. They really haven't, and you can talk about, we can look at it, we can find, but actually you haven't really answered the question to the satisfaction of the people here, because what is needed is money, and we operate in a different system with different governance. So it's all very well the work that you do in Westminster or the work that you do with your paid employees in Manchester, but you are representing British Jews, and that includes Scotland. So you need to be cognizant that it is different. There are different legislations, there's a different parliament, and there's different politicians. And they cannot simply be dealt with the same way that everything else is dealt with in England and Wales. And operating as we do, finance is needed. And if you want to continue to represent British Jews, then as a board and as your next president, you are going to need to step up and not just give us hollow words that you'll look into it or you'll have people on committees, because that doesn't deal with the issue that there is here. So what I'd like to know is, having considered your first answers, if you would actually reconsider what you say, what you've already said, and if you think that there is scope to actually, rather than just talk about fundraising or looking for the money that's come from the donations that's come from Scotland to partially stay in Scotland, to actually do something significant and help us here, so you do represent British Jews and not just English Jews.
thank you, Adam. And this time, Phil will start the answers.
Thank you so much, Adam. Well, I hope you didn't hear from me a kind of provisional thing. We had a detailed document setting out a potential agreement between the two parties. As I said, it was worth, I think, £150,000 over 18 months. I might be wrong about the exact number and about the year, but it's something like that. And it wasn't quite accepted. Now, we can begin to look at that detailed arrangement. I'm not talking about provisional. I'm talking about very, very detailed discussions about how we support, as you say, an organisation that deals with the devolved matters, as well as the support with an organisation that works with the reserved matters. And all of the things that I said to you, working together on a manifesto that recognises the specificity of the Scottish situation, the first ever Scottish Parliamentary Manifesto. These are specific things. And when I talk about a £100,000 fighting fund, that's a specific number. So I hope from me, you're hearing not just maybes, think about whatever, you're hearing specific commitments. And I intend to deliver on those if elected.
Thank you. Michael, next.
So when I raised the question about sharing the communal contribution, that is something that we can seriously look at here in Scotland. There is money raised here, and my belief is that some of that money should remain in Scotland. It may well be that we work out that it should be all the money, but we need to know, if it's 50,000, whatever that level is that's required, I will make sure that Glasgow and Scotland get. Sorry?
It's 5,000 or less.
Right. But what I'm saying is that I will make sure that if ScoJeC is required to get £50,000, I will make sure that that is delivered to the Scottish organisations.
Thank you, Michael. And now Amanda.
Thank you, Adam. I think I stand by what I said. What I said was that I would look for ways that we could work together to identify funding and then to put proposals together to raise the money for projects and for work that we would do together. And I stand by that. I can put a timeline on it and say within the first 6 months of my triennium, I'll have worked with ScoJeC to map out what's possible. And we'll go from there. I just want to revisit the fact of the proposals that we put in and that we got up to the line back in 2021, I think it was. 2024, we're in a different situation, and it's not what we put on paper then is not what ScoJeC wants or needs now. And so we have to put that aside, and we have to start again. And we have to start from a place where we're working together in partnership to meet all our needs. You're absolutely right. We represent all British Jews, and we need to make sure that Scotland is part of that, and that you feel that you're part of that.
Thank you, Amanda. And Sheila.
Thank you. Yes, Adam. Wales has actually got a devolved parliament. We're actually meeting with the Welsh Government because we have a new First Minister and we're in the beginning of May, and it's not all about being London and being about England, okay? I can't commit to any funding because I don't know what the position's going to be. I haven't been party to all these discussions that have been going on. But I pledge, if I am elected, my first visit will be to sit down with ScoJeC and discuss exactly how we can help you when we have, within the first few weeks of being elected. I pledge that this will be the first community I will visit because I've done it in Wales. I work with the board in Wales. We've had lots of problems of anti-Semitism, attacks in Sainsbury's, the Senedd flying the Palestinian flag. I've done it, and I will do it with Scotland. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Now we had a question.
Gentleman over here.
Oh, sorry, Tim.
Good evening. I'm the President of the Glasgow Jewish Representative Council and the Vice Chair of ScoJeC. Good evening. First of all, I would like to say that the Glasgow Jewish Representative Council and ScoJeC are currently going through a restructure, and I hope that any pledges that you give this evening, especially pledges for £50,000, is to the new restructured committee as well as to ScoJeC and the Rep Council. And as wonderful as Ephraim is, I would reiterate what Philip said, he's not irreplaceable and will be replaced, hopefully, very soon. Not by me, I would add. However, my question is this. Last week, Glasgow City Council put a motion through, a horrible motion, which, despite the best efforts of Ephraim, ScoJeC, myself, we failed on stopping the motion allowing the flying of the Palestinian flag over Glasgow City Council on, I believe, the 29th of February this year, and every year to show solidarity with Israel. And I heard with Palestinians, and I heard today.
29th of November, yeah.
I heard today somebody told me that it's not flying in support of the Palestinian people. I heard that the reason why it was voted for was as a warning against Israel for destroying Gaza. Now, this is a frightening prospect. We've had the flag flown over Glasgow before, and it's horrible that they're now voting to allow it across the board. Now, my question to you is, as the board of Deputies for British Jews, which has already been said, I ask you, if voted in, what will you do to help us stop this, and stop it this year and every other year?
Thank you, Tim. Can I just for clarification, the motion is to fly the flag on Palestine Solidarity Day. It's nothing, no mention of Israel. What people may be interpreting it as is something else. But what the council motion says is solidarity.
That's right, but I was told today that by somebody who voted for it, that it was voted on the premise that it was a warning to Israel for destroying Gaza. That's what I have.
Yep. So it's Michael first this time.
Okay, so in answer to your first question, I think it's wonderful that you're bringing the two organisations together, and yes, I will pledge to make sure that you get the 50,000 of the two merged organisations. And well done. It's a great example to the community of bringing the whole of Britain, of communities coming together and working together. Regarding the question about the Palestinian flag that's been raised, I've said that I'm putting together an inclusive anti-Semitism programme of every aspect of life. I'm working with a group of people who are going to manage everything that you can imagine, from universities to councils to the BBC to all aspects that we can imagine, sports, and everything that we can see, that when this sort of thing comes up, there's a group of people who will be able to react and support and work and know about every aspect that is going on anti-Semitism. And I'm now working very closely with that team of people, and we hope to get started ASAP.
Thank you, Michael. And now Amanda.
So the question is, what will we do if it goes ahead? We have between now and then to take action. And we will, of course, follow your lead, because the only thing that we can do is to support what you want to do and to amplify your messages and take them more widely. We can obviously work with you to make sure that your arguments and your actions are as strong and as loud and as clear as possible. But I think this is one where we can also share experience from other parts of the UK where there have been other issues around flags, and there are lots of examples where we've been able to, where we've had some success. But this is an issue that's popping up in different parts of the United Kingdom, and so we need to stay alive to it, and we need to make sure that, as I say, we're following your lead and we're supporting you as best we can.
And Sheila?
Thanks, Timothy. Good to see you in person, not on screen. On October the 7th, or October the 8th, the Senedd of the Welsh community, the Welsh government, did nothing for 10 days to voice any support for the Jewish community. And there was a debate for a ceasefire not long ago. And through me as a deputy, just an ordinary deputy, I got in touch with the board's public affairs officers. They made representation. We had our voice heard. The president is coming to meet with the Senedd to discuss the position of the Jewish community. But do you know what's important? Even if we don't change their minds, it's the perception of the Jewish community that these things have been tried, that the board is there to support you when we can, even if we're not successful. The Jewish people in Scotland and around the UK need to know the board is there to support them. It's the perception of having that support that's really important.
Thank you, and Phil.
Well, I was talking to Vicky and Sammy from Glasgow Friends of Israel about this, and I'm utterly disgusted by this, and particularly disgusted that the date is 29th of November, because what is that date? It's the date of the UN partition vote, which, as much as I support a two-state solution, is the beginning of Palestinian rejectionism. They were offered a state there, a Palestinian state, and so what they're voting for is to celebrate rejectionism. And I think we have to get out there in the media and make that case clear. I think we also need to think about the public sector equality duty, or if there's an equivalent in Scotland, I don't know if the legislation is the same, and work with people like UK Lawyers for Israel to see if there's a legislative means of an equalities impact assessment on what this means for Jewish communities when the flag of the Palestinian flag is flown and not any other flag. I think that's pretty disgraceful. And we have to be out there and clear on the facts, and we have to be clear on what's happened. You know, it's the same with Hassan Abu Sitta, right? Someone who's praised terrorists is elected the rector of a university here. What does that say? I'm angry about that as a British Jew. I'm angry about it as a Zionist, but I'm also angry about it as someone who supports Western liberal democracy. What are we doing celebrating people who support terrorism? That is a red line that shouldn't be crossed, and we need to be absolutely clear in every medium about that.
Thank you, Phil. Right. Paul. Also, two Pauls. Paul Edlin first, then tomorrow.
Thank you. all of the platform know me already, as I was a two-term vice president of the Board of Deputies.
Know you and love you.
And also I chaired the Rep Council before Timothy took over. One thing that's not been mentioned here is that the difference between the Scottish Government and the British Government. The Scottish Government has a track record of certainly anti-Israel bias, in my opinion, and there's evidence that they have given substantial funds to Gaza. They've not offered any money that I know of to support Israeli charities for the wounded or damaged people and people suffering over the hostages. They've done nothing for Israel. In my opinion, we have a problem with defence, which is much more significant than it is in England pro rata. It's a very small community up here. I don't believe in the past, and I'm not in a position to comment at the moment, but certainly up to last year, as far as I can see, ScoJeC has not shown the support from Israel that mainstream Jews would expect, in my opinion. Now, this is something that has to be faced up to. The majority of mainstream Jews, as you know, support Israel, and they have a view of Israel in relationship to Jewish society that must be developed. And I want to ask you all, how will you work with ScoJeC to improve what I think is a deficiency at this level, and to support this very small community now, make no mistake about how small it is, in defending itself against the huge wave of anti-Semitism that is going on up here, with a government that is not showing the same neutrality and support for the Jewish community through Israel that you have in England. Now, I don't say the community is not supported towards the Jewish community up here. They have not, they certainly have interacted with the Jewish community, and they say they are supportive. But I do not believe a government can be supportive towards the Jewish community and at the same time be antipathetic or antagonistic towards Israel. So we have a big issue up here, and I think we need the Board of Deputies to assist the community. I'd like to hear what you've got to say.
And we're back to Amanda to start.
So, thank you, Paul. Ephraim is a member of the Defence Division, and the Defence Division at the Board of Deputies is the division that looks at anti-Semitism and racism. I was surprised to hear you say that, because as you know, what we hear in terms of the reports we hear back from ScoJeC is the work that Ephraim and ScoJeC are doing with government here. We hear about the regular meetings with the First Minister, the regular meetings with the police to tackle some of the issues that are happening on a day-to-day basis. We hear about the work that Ephraim's been doing with universities and with UJS in bringing the issues of anti-Semitism to light to the government in Scotland. So although I completely get that absolutely more needs to be done everywhere, we will stand ready to support ScoJeC and the Glasgow Rep Council to support the plans that you put in place, and we will reinforce those with the work that we're doing.
Thank you, Amanda. And Sheila now.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I understand your point. Can I just say that Wales is not England, and we also have trouble in Wales as well, you know, and it is quite hard when you have a government that, before this new First Minister, was very anti-Israel. And you're quite right. The emotional tie for most Jewish people, for nearly all Jewish people, not every person, but the Israeli, the anti-Semitism, the anti-Zionism, it's all one thing. But I have to tell you, part of my campaign is about unity, and unity with the Rep Council, and unity with ScoJeC, and unity with Vicky and the Friends of Israel. And we should be working together on the board to support you in these endeavours to make the government understand that there is, you know, all Jewish people have an emotional tie to Israel, and it's really important that we do that. I'm happy to engage to bring you together so as we can get this work done. Thank you.
Thanks, Sheila. And Phil this time.
Well, thank you very much. I'm a proud Zionist, and I know that many in this community are also proud Zionists. And what I would say is we obviously need to advocate strongly to the Scottish Government as well as the UK Government on those issues. Now, I've met with Ephraim, and I think it was Micheline, with the First Minister, the previous one, Nicola Sturgeon. We divided up the agenda in this way with the devolved and the reserved matters, where Glasgow Jewish Rep Council, represented, I think, by them, Micheline, spoke about some of the local matters, ScoJeC spoke about the Scotland-wide matters, and we at the board spoke about the devolved matters, and we spoke about the reserved matters, particularly foreign policy. Now, I think all of us sympathise with the First Minister's families suffering in Gaza. None of us want to see innocent civilians damaged by that. But we also need to be clear about this call for an immediate ceasefire. We all want to see a ceasefire. But there was a ceasefire in place on the 7th of October, which Hamas broke. There was a ceasefire in place after the last round of hostage negotiations, which Hamas broke. And we can't have a ceasefire which means Israel ceases and Hamas fires. And I think that's the case we need to make at every level, the UK government, the Scottish government, and everywhere.
Thank you, Phil and Michael.
So, the majority of Jews in Britain, as we know, support Israel, as you said, Paul, and we represent British Jewry, and therefore we must support Israel, number one. In terms of my campaign, a large part of it is about anti-Semitism, and it's about putting the resources where they're needed to try and make sure that our community is protected. And that is giving them all that they need, and the people that I'm working with are going to do that. It is important that we have people in the regions, in Scotland, who are looked after, because at the end of the day, I know that we've had outstanding leaders in the community who've come from Scotland, many of us who know them, and it's important that we make sure that these communities are not threatened, and we build on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Now, the next question I have is from Paul Moran.
Thanks very much.
Current Deputy.
First of all, if I may say so, you know, the ending of the current 3-year triennium, it actually did raise within the Jewish community in Scotland by the Board of Deputies, who offered it to help a professionalisation for the future of the Jewish community in Scotland. That was taken for 3 consecutive years. In addition to that, as a result of that, 2 Scottish donors added to it. That would have totalled £100,000. It was offered, it was said to them that no strings, but it was not accepted. And it was that close for that to be done. Facts. That was there. That's to begin with. And it's the importance of the Board of Deputies has got that close to do it. And it's important. And it's important to help from that. My question to you is this. What is the future of Jewish democracy in the United Kingdom? The development of the JLC, now accountable in effect to itself. The amount of work for the Glasgow Jewish community from our own Jewish Community Trust was absolutely superb for the work and support that's given. But we've got to be careful again that there has to be a very strong democratic part. Not necessarily these 2 things, but it's critical. And I have to say I'm very worried about the democratisation. I'm very worried about Scottish democratisation. We had a Glasgow Jewish Representative Council But we don't delegate meetings anymore for accountability. By the way, the only Red Council that doesn't have that situation to that extent, and to the excellence of the work of ScoJeC, it is excellent, but it is certainly not terribly accountable other than to a relatively small council. I don't like the trend of this. The Board of Deputies is important, and it is about the only aspect to have an effective democracy. Can we actually get proper involvement for the future? So I do appeal not only for us, but for UK. Don't let democratisation go.
Thank you, Paul. And Sheila's first this time.
Paul, I hear you. And don't retire, Paul. You have too much to offer. Yeah, you're right. The board's been around 264 years. You know, we have to draw on our strengths as the only democratically elected national body to work with the JLC and other Jewish organisations, not to take over or necessarily support their projects, but together. Unity is something I really want. And if you are concerned about the democratisation, if I can say it, of aspects of your Scottish community, again, we have resources, we have, keep using that word, staff expertise. I've been a deputy now for 15 years. I've been very active the whole time. I would be very happy to help sit down with Timothy and with yourself and with everybody to be able to help you with this. You know, we all are on the same page here and we all need to work together. But I hear what you're saying. Thank you.
Thanks, Sheila. And this time, Phil next.
Well, Paul, thank you very much, and thank you for your kind words about the deal we were negotiating. You're right, it has to be something that's agreed by both sides. We got close, but not close enough. Let's continue talking, and particularly with the new reconstituted ScoJeC and Glasgow Jewish Rep Council, maybe we can find something in the future, but we'll look to whatever interim support we can to boost activism, as we will around the country if I'm elected. I'm a passionate supporter of democracy. The reason I've been involved in the board for 16 years is because I think it is a precious thing to have a democratic organisation. I value the work of other organisations. Personally, I'd love to see the board and the JLC merge because it's a waste of time and resources to have two organisations. But I would have no compromise on the democracy of that merged organisation. I think it's really precious. But what I think we need to do is have a new settlement where it's not just a passive democracy, but actually we empower our grassroots 300 deputies around the country to be active. We should be deploying resources, we should be deploying that power, because if every deputy knew their local MP, local councillors, local faith leaders, local media, and we scaled our activism, that would be where the impact would increase. That would be a step change for the community, and that is what I want to lead.
Thanks, Phil. And Michael?
Thank you, Paul. Look, the question about a merger between the JLC and the board is deeply, deeply complicated. We are the only democratic organisation, and therefore we've got to try and keep that democracy, number one. Number two, I've been involved in a number of mergers, and I can tell you now, more mergers fail than succeed. And they fail not because of the finances, but actually because of the cultural difference. You guys must be going through that same discussion now here. And culture is really important. And unless you can get to come together on the same page. Let me just tell you two strengths about there are many strengths about the board. The people that we have in the board are just outstanding. We don't get time and enough, and one of my roles will be to go and see and talk to every board member. It's only 300 people at the moment. Hopefully it'll become bigger. But what I want to do is understand what people's roles are, what their strengths are, get them involved in the community, get them working in the community. I did it in business. Many of you know that I used to have shops up here, and it's really important that that will help the organisation. Thank you.
And finally, Amanda.
Thanks, Paul. And thank you for the kind words about the Board of Deputies. We are the only democratically elected representative organisation in the United Kingdom for the Jewish community. And that is our strength. Our strength is also that we cover everything from Brit Milah through to burials, to education, to defence, and international relations, support for Israel. We do it all, and that's what makes us unique. It's also what makes the combination of ScoJeC and the Glasgow Representative Council unique. And I am confident, not being involved with it in any shape, the bringing together in any shape or form, that that as you come together, you will be able to model something that does exactly the same, that you're able to have both the democratically elected element through the Rep Council and the advocacy and education and broad range support that you have through ScoJeC, and anything that we can do at the Board of Deputies to support that, we will continue to do, because it's a very precious thing to have, and I know that you'll want to keep it as best as possible you can. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've got time for one last quick question, if we've got one. So Howard? And this time we start with Phil.
Well, Howard, like you, if you want something done, ask a busy person, basically. And I'm fortunate enough to I've spoken to my work about this, and we think we can make it work. As it happens, I work in communications, campaigning, advocacy, so there is a kind of the skill sets are in a similar place. And yeah, it is important. And I think one of the things that I offer is a different stage of career. I'm someone who wants to achieve things, wants to build towards successes. I'm not someone so I think that I come at it with having discussed it, and I'm in a place to do it. I previously served as a local councillor alongside being a full-time employee at the Board of Deputies, so I know what it is to manage different things that are time committed. But like you, we're a community of volunteers, and people get things done.
Thanks, Phil. Michael?
I am very fortunate in that my brother and my son work very hard and let me get on and do nowadays time to do other things. I've devoted probably the last 10 years a large part of my time to community charity work in a number of areas. I am able to do that, give it the time that is required, and do other things as well. So yes, I can do that and sustain and do everything that I need to do. Thank you.
Amanda?
Thank you. There are 7 days in a week, I think, and on Shabbat I don't work. So that gives me 6 days. I work 2.5 days a week, and the rest of my time is the boards.
And finally, Sheila.
Thank you. I'm blessed that I'm not waged anymore, but since I stopped being waged, I've never stopped. I've never been as busy, but my time is my own to do with what I can, and my main preoccupation is fighting anti-Semitism through education. But if I became president, that would be my priority. I've been in America 5 hours behind as a deputy, not an honorary officer, working with the board's senior leadership because there was an issue in Cardiff who came to me, and I got in touch with the board, and I was in the middle of the night. It is my priority, but my work will not stop, and whatever I do to help fight anti-Semitism. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just looking to Michael. Do we have time for another quick one?
Yeah, one more question.
Right. Come on, we haven't had a lady asking a question. Come on, you can't be shy. No.
Stanley's wonderful, but he's not a woman.
Stanley, you fill many, many roles.
You'll get, I hate crime.
Glasgow of any of them coming up to speak to us. So I'd like to ask a question about them through you guys. Last week's Jewish Chronicle carried an article. Apparently, according to the article, they
papers all about the future of British Jewry. It didn't say very much about it. Can you advise us, please, what it's all about?
I think you've set a good challenge there. So I think it's Michael to start this time.
It is.
I was happy to take that.
I have gone through their 4 key points, which I read last week. They are, a lot of what they want to do is around anti-Semitism. It's about some of the work that the board do, and they see themselves representing the community. For me, it's important that the board continues to expand its own work, but to do it better than we have done, if we can do it better. And that means about doing our resources. As far as the JLC is concerned, it's a great organisation. They've got, obviously, the leadership who are moneyed in the community. We know that. But those are people who give it time and are caring about the community as well. We've got to find a way to work with them and make sure that we keep our relevance as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Amanda?
So the document that you're describing, Forge the Future, is the summation of a wide group of people, some of whom are in this room who were at a workshop that came up with this notion of what needs to be done to create the right future for British Jews. And they've split the work into 9 different areas with 9 different implementation groups. And they've gone out to the community and their members to say, if you as members of organisations have people within them that you think are expert and are the right people to contribute to those groups, then put yourself forward now. And the board will be looking at where the best places are for us to be involved, the best places for us to lead, and the best places for us to say, that's our space and we're going to do it our way.
Thank you, Amanda. And Sheila?
We don't need to have a competition between Jewish organisations. We're all on the same page. Claudia Mendoza is a personal friend. She leads the JLC. You know, we need to work together. There are 3,000 post-its all over the wall from 180 participants at a workshop. You know, we need to look. We don't need mergers. Nobody needs to have their name in lights. We need to work together with all the organisations. They have some amazing ideas. The board has some amazing ideas. Let's sit down together with the deputies and with other representative organisations and come up with something that can work to protect and defend the Jewish community.
Well, look, obviously it's a pity that they haven't come and spoken to you directly about that, and I think that you should issue an invitation. I know the JLC issues a strategic plan every 2 years or so maybe there'll be time in advance of the next one for them to come and do that. Look, if there are good things in it, we will work together on it. That's really important. I think that the board has a number of things that it can do because it has a mandate from the grassroots, a democratic mandate from the community, and roots into every part, about 100 different constituencies across the country, for example, that have direct representation of the Board of Deputies, that we can do things that no other communal organisation can, where we can support each other. That's a great thing. I don't want us to compete where we don't need to, but that's what you'll see from my leadership, close connection with every community, not just speaking from an event at London and saying, here's what we've decided for you, be grateful people. We'll be working with you to develop the policies and then working with you to implement the policies, and that is the way I will lead.
That's going to end the question session. However, we do give the candidates 1 minute to sum up, and the random order chosen for the summing up is Sheila first. Amanda first.
Oh.
Thank you. My mission is for the board to be transparent, accountable and sustainable, relevant and responsive to our community's needs, and a source of pride and inspiration. As your Vice President of Defence, you've seen me fight the rising tide of hate and defend and protect our rights and traditions. I have the experience we need now more than ever to work with you to forge a stronger, more resilient community. As your next president, expect strong leadership rooted in service to the community. My promise to you is clear. I will stand strong, protect and unify our community in purpose. I will listen to and empower deputies and our community, and will create a board that serves as a beacon of hope and strength for generations to come. I'm asking for your vote to be the next Board of Deputies President, for a board that's unified, empowered and transformed. Together, let's build a brighter future for British Jews.
Thank you. And now Phil.
Well, good evening, and thank you again so much. And thank you to you, Philip, for chairing, not really with little notice, trust Philip to get things done, is what I say. I think that's a clear lesson from tonight. And now you've heard from us, and now it's over to you to make your decision. I put to you 5 questions to help you make that decision. First of all, who do you think will best represent this community on question time? Who do you think is most likely to be able to speak to the TikTok generation? Who has the strongest connections across politics, the media, faith, and diplomacy to make our case at the highest levels? Who has the strongest track record of delivery in this organisation, and who has the best plan for its future? I put it to you that the answer to all those 5 questions is the same, and therefore I ask for your vote on the 12th of May. In the meantime, thank you very much, good evening, and most importantly, Yisrael Chai. Thank you.
Michael.
Ladies and gentlemen, Philip, thank you. The board must lead and inspire confidence. More of the same isn't an option. The world we live in needs strong, experienced and effective leadership. I am the serious leader for serious times. While leading Maccabi, I created new initiatives, including the largest event in the community, the Fun Run. I've held other posts that have included the president of Marble Arch Synagogue, the chair of LFI, British Israel Chamber of Commerce, and vice chair at the UJAA. Beyond our community, I led the Bradford Regeneration Company. I served as deputy chair of the University of Leeds, and I'm currently vice chairman of the Faith and Belief Forum, and I ran a large business. We must prioritise the challenges of Jew hatred and poverty. We must act immediately and act now. If we are divided, there is little we can do. However, if we are united, there's little we cannot do. Join me today, as many others have done across decades, vote for Michael Ziff to lead and work with a talented team for the benefit of British Jewry and Israel and together. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Michael. And by the whim of the random number generator, Sheila had the first word and she gets the last word.
My husband would like that.
Probably wouldn't.
For 6 years, I've been vice president, senior vice president, and deputised for the president on many occasions. I have the experience and the skills and the passion to lead the board. I would have 3 priorities. We need to fight anti-Semitism. We need to shout louder than our enemies. We need to educate. We need to educate about being Jewish in the UK, and we need to educate about Israel. And we need to involve all the deputies in this work who want to be involved. And many people are unhappy that they have not been involved so far. And I want to end with this thought. I want to paraphrase the great Hillel from the Pirkei Avot. If we are not for ourselves, who will be for us? If we are only for ourselves, what are we? If not now, when? Thank you.
I'd like to thank all the candidates for attending this evening, for presenting their case, for answering the questions. I ask you all to give them a vote of thanks. There'll now be a changeover, just bear with us. Thank you. So we have 5 new faces here. These are the candidates for the Vice President posts. We have Adrian Cohen, Andrew Gilbert, Jeremy Michelson, Owen Power and Denise Lester. I just want to point out that Owen has a hearing problem, and I will turn and repeat questions to him so as he can lip read from me. So if you think I'm behaving slightly oddly, there's a reason, apart from the usual. So we're going to start with opening statements, and for the opening statements. The first opening statement is by Andrew.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me? I obviously can. So in previous nights I've talked about listening, empowering, collaboration, and today we're talking about really understanding the regions and the nations. We've got to do work where Jews live, we've got to do work where some Jews live, and we've got to do work where no Jews live. It all costs money, but the money doesn't just have to come from the Board of Deputies. David M. Cohen for many years talked about the Glasgow Community Chest and the work up in Glasgow and the incredible strength of the Glasgow community. I co-chair London Jewish Forum, and in London Jewish Forum, our largest funder probably in the next year will be the National Health Service for the work we do on London Jewish Health Partnership. We're talking about capacity for resilience work. We're talking about capacity to do cohesion work. The Board of Deputies is funding, but I hope that's capacity funding because I hope in future we won't need that money. I hope we'll fundraise that money. So I think the Board of Deputies isn't a money tree for every region. The Board of Deputies has to be at the way in which we develop the funding and the model for the future of our community. I came up here also very interested in the Labour Party, which I'm involved in, because maybe they're going to be a government. And I'm really intrigued about the candidates here who are going to be for Labour, and I've spent my time meeting 3 of them today, and I'll meet 3 of them tomorrow, because there are 28 battlegrounds, and I think we're going to see those people. I'm excited, but having met some of those, Zubair Ahmed, I thought was incredible this afternoon, Joanna, Joe, and tomorrow we'll see 3 more. It's incredible. You've got lots of things we work on. I want to do it slightly differently, but I come with lots of experience in the community.
Thank you, Andrew. It is now Owen's turn.
Thank you. Good evening. It's really lovely to be here in Scotland, though I have to admit I'm not totally aware of the symbolism of my tartan scarf. There is little doubt for the new triennium that it's going to be once again a case of all hands on deck as we work to combat anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, and of course Israel hate. However, I'm also convinced that the board will want to develop and grow, and for that reason I am standing as the candidate for inclusion with the particular remit for disability and the regions. So I'm hoping to have your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Owen. Next, Denise.
Good evening all. I'm Denise Lester. I'm a deputy for 30 years and I've served on both the Communities Division and the Defence Division alongside your long-standing colleagues Paul Edlin and Ephraim Borowski, and no precedence for each because they've both been invaluable and committed and Ephraim couldn't be more committed. I've come here and listened very carefully to what you have to say. I hear that you want us to advocate, work with you, protect you, and I'm a solicitor advocate and I'm used to going to government as a senior family lawyer who chairs a regional justice board within the Family Justice Board and manages the judiciary in that role as well. I'm used to going to government in relation to legislation on Law Society Council of England and Wales. I will do the same with your politicians here if I was elected. I will work with you and I will visit you because I can see you're all very proud committed Jews. I have friends from the Scottish community in London as well, and I want to help preserve your way of life. I've fundraised with UJIA, Jewish Care, and I sit on the ScoJeC advisory board. More recently, I've been involved in the Blow the Show for Hostages campaign and the Lovelock Bridge campaign. I'm active and will work at grassroots level. And I think that we need to engage much more with you and develop. And I supported the fundraising as well for ScoJeC for many years. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Jeremy.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having us here. So in seeking your support for Vice President of the board, I know that I can unite an increasingly polarised body which leads an increasingly polarised community. I have a record of deputy empowerment. As a regional vice chair, I successfully campaigned for the appointment of a Board of Deputies regional manager. As a member of the Communities and Education Division, I passed a resolution calling for more deputy input before board staff and honorary officers meet ministers and civil servants. In Greater Manchester, where I sit on the Jewish Representative Council and I am the lead for education, I empowered educators to set up the Judaism for Schools group and also the Northern Holocaust Education Group. I want to minimise the isolation of regional deputies by having sub-regional deputies meetings and encourage proactive use of regional deputies' WhatsApp groups to coordinate activities. Anti-Semitism must be fought by building alliances with other faiths and ethnic groups. I intend to mobilise the skills of deputies in task-orientated work to drive forward the board in its agenda. And our support for Israel must be forever unwavering. We must work with the Jewish Leadership Council and other grassroots organisations so that our community can continue to live in peace and harmony in the UK. A united board, empowered deputies and a positive dynamic leadership is what I aim to provide. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Adrian.
Thank you very much, Philip. For 40 years I've been fighting for the Jewish community. In 1985-86 I was the president of the Union of Jewish Students and I led a demonstration outside NUS Scotland. It was led by Pauline McNeill because of the anti-Semitism that there was within the Union. In the 1990s I helped to establish an Israel practice group within an international law firm. I've acted for the State of Israel and I've also acted for governments within the Gulf. In the 2000s I was involved in establishing a campaign against the academic boycott against Israel and also established the London Jewish Forum. In 2010, I took on the chair of Labour Friends of Israel, which I still do, and I also became a trustee, dare I say it, of the Jewish Leadership Council and ended up as their governance trustee. So I've seen what goes on across the community. And I'm very committed to the community in all its ways. Since October the 7th, we've lived in unprecedented times. I've been down to the Gaza envelope on 2 occasions, and the things that I've seen and the testimonies that I've heard are etched on my soul. Back here, we're extremely concerned about policing. We're concerned about community safety. We're concerned about the erosion of social cohesion. But I have to say also that the Board of Deputies, as people have pointed out today, is the democratic voice of the Jewish community. And the Board of Deputies, even though it is that democratic voice, has too often been the subject of controversy and, as Jeremy mentioned, polarisation. And I think the important thing is that we make sure the community is the heart of everything that we do. And by community, I mean across the UK. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adrian, and all the candidates. I will take the opportunity of Chairman's prerogative again. I'm going to ask a similar question to last time, so you've had a chance to think about it, but I want to just put it into a little bit more context. The presidential candidates spoke about cooperation, support, some spoke about providing funding. I just want to give you a little bit of the lens when you're sitting at this end of the country rather than at the London end of the country. As people have said, we're a very small community. We're also becoming a more dispersed community. It is likely when the statistics are published from the census, which only happened last year in 22 in Scotland because of the pandemic, that Glasgow will for the first time not be 50% or more of the community. It is likely, I said. But the important point is that as the community gets more dispersed, it loses the cohesion of being connected to synagogues and other bodies. And it seems to me that the board always looks to synagogues when it is counting heads and when it's talking about money. The problem is with a dispersed community, it is very hard to raise money. And when we sit at this end of the country, we see that the majority of the Jews and the majority of the community's money is in London. But if those Jews in London want to be part of a UK-wide Jewish community, do they not have to subsidise their brethren in other parts of the country? So that's a context in which I'd like you to think about how we can work better together. And for this time, we're going to go to Adrian first.
Thank you, Philip. So it's Mike. Can everyone hear me, by the way? Is that great? So the first point to note is that Scotland is strategically very important. The Scottish community is strategically important because of the importance of Scotland and of Scotland within the Union. And therefore, you can't just do this on the basis of head count, or it has an inbuilt importance to it that, if you want, is which is because of its status within the Union. And so obviously it's very important that we make sure, both from the Jews that are living here, but also from UK Jewry as a whole, that we ensure that we have a very important and effective voice within Scotland. Now, Michael and others alluded to the financial position of the board, and the board itself is not flush with money. But that's not the end of the story. We have to find ways to raise money, to facilitate the raising of money, and the Board of Deputies can play a role in doing that. And that's what we need to do, partially maybe out of our own resources, but partially by working in partnership with you to find ways of sourcing the finance. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew?
Yeah, thanks. I covered some of this when I started, but I worked with Ephraim today when I met the PPCs from the Labour Party, and he does an incredible job. And when I was writing some of these MPs, future MPs, they were complimenting our community and their relationships with the community. But we're talking about all the people who have moved down to London, and all the people to Israel, and all the people to other places. And in London, with all these synagogues used to have names, the Vishnitzer or the Kalisher or all these other places, which Jews had once lived before. And therefore the relationship between people who were part of your community, who grew up in your community, some of those maybe should be part of that support. And I can think of many major people from the Scottish community there. I also believe that the synagogue is a major part. And I look at my own Reformed synagogue, where we've got a doubled membership. We've got people from around the community taking part on Zoom, and a much more spread out community. So I don't believe those Jews of Dundee, Aberdeen are necessarily cut off, but we're, in the case of new models, in terms of the post-pandemic synagogue and community.
Thank you. Denise?
I'm going to follow on from what Andrew said, and I'm going to adopt a fundraising hat here. Each of you know people who have moved to London, have moved to other communities, who have moved to Israel. And the Scottish community, you also know people from Edinburgh, the other side of the motorway, and train lines and other regional parts of the community. You're clearly a community that needs fundraising, needs support, and I would set a challenge back to you as well to provide a list to us of people we can call to develop specific strategic projects. It could be an event where someone owns. You may also know artists, people in the music world, in the arts world, that could put on events that could be funded as well. It could be live streamed or Zoomed. Those are some ideas. You've got talent across the professions as well, and people that could deliver lecture series as well. And that also would assist, and the board could partner with you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy?
Thank you. I must plead ignorance here, to be quite frank with you. I'm not going to blather. I was 49 years old, and in 2002 I finally crossed the border. And yeah, I mean, it's incredible, isn't it? You go all over the world, and it doesn't, and you finally only cross Hadrian's Wall much later on in life. I think what I would do, because I really, although I know about ScoJeC, I know about the Glasgow Jewish Representative Council, if I was, for example, elected, hopefully as Vice President, and also maybe the Communities and Education Division, which is the one I know best, education's been my life's work, I would want to take an audit very, very quickly with your advice and support of precisely where the need is greatest, what the need happens to be. And at that point, and only that point, could I honestly give you some ideas about how we would go about us supporting you to help yourselves, and so to prolong your life here in this community as a proper functioning community. I think that's the most honest thing that I can say, because I think to start blathering away about what I might do when really it might not be relevant is not acceptable.
Thank you. And Owen.
Wherever we are, wherever we live, we're all faced with the same pretty awful anti-Semitism, anti-Israel hate. But I'm very, very conscious that Scotland is having a really, really difficult time over the last few years with the issue of nationalism and independence. So I really, really think it's so, so important that within the Scottish community, they send us, deputies, to educate us on what is really going on and what the problems are, because I don't think we fully understand it. But I think if you tell us and educate us, then we can be motivated to do something positive to support you in every way, including financially. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Paul, I saw your hand go shooting up, so.
That is my opinion with my experience of it. Now, this community, being very small, needs to strengthen its defence against anti-Semitism. And I want to ask each of you how you would use your influence to ensure that the board gives adequate political defence to this community in Scotland going forward.
I'm going to repeat that for Owen's benefit. Paul is saying that having been a vice president, he is aware that the main power of the vice president is to influence. So he's asking how you, as a candidate, would use that influence to challenge anti-Semitism. Is that a fair summary, Paul? In Scotland. To challenge anti-Semitism in Scotland. Right. The order this time will be Andrew first.
Thanks. I want to look at the model we've developed in London, where we have in every single Jewish borough a group called a WhatsApp group. And in that WhatsApp group, the Emergency Jewish Concerns groups, we'll have the chair, the rabbi, if there's a school, the head teacher, the chair of governors. And in there, we'll have the assembly member, well, call that the member of the Scottish Parliament, or the local, and we'll have people, the leader of the local council, we have the cabinet member for policing, and we actually have the police in there. And in those groups, and you'll see rabbis talking, and then Redbridge, Wes Streeting talking, and dealing with the actual problems and making sure the police take things on. And that's how we can combat anti-Semitism. I disagree. I think we have a lot more power to do this around the country, and I think we should be doing it and working in Scotland. And my question and conversations with the MSPs today, with the PPCs today, was how could we do this in Scotland? We're looking at your system, which is a devolved system, and working out how we could do that here. So I'm really interested in how we can make these things work.
Thank you. And Denise?
Oh, very, very good question. I think that there's several layers to this. I think that the top-line visibility in terms of communications, needs to be more Scotland-focused. We need to be more agile in responding to incidents from a presidential level downwards and outwards. I think there's also a need to empower not only the deputies, but each and every one of you who are Jewish and Scottish, so that you have the skill set and education to be able to respond. Phil has mentioned a model of empowerment and regional engagement with faith leaders, and not only that, a programme, and I think that there is real scope, and I also think there's room for a conference led by the Board of Deputies. It could be online or preferably in person in Scotland, where there could be speakers to help you combat anti-Semitism as well, and feel loud and proud to be Jewish as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. And Jeremy?
Thank you. I heard somebody say from the audience, you need to come up when someone said, if deputies would come down. No, I agree with you. I think we do need to come up. That's something I would want to do, make up for lost time. But I think what I said in my opening statement actually applies. I think, obviously, I'd look at the devolved government and see how we can influence the devolved government. But also, I think I would look at other ethnic minority groups. You talked about, Paul mentioned how we're a small community. I've heard that said on a few occasions tonight. Okay, let's team up with other communities who might be facing similar problems, not necessarily as intense as ours, I don't know, but actually team up with them and see what we can do and work together.
Thank you. Owen?
To be honest, I don't think I'd have to do very much to influence the board, simply because I think the determination to do something about it is very much there. But there's one particular area that I'm passionate about, and that's education, to really, really encourage communities in Scotland to use the board's resource of the Jewish Living Experience exhibition to host it in your communities here, to engage with non-Jews so they can get some understanding of the difficulties that we as a community face. Thank you.
Thank you. And Adrian?
Thank you. I think there's a number of components to the issues you've raised there, Paul. So one of them is the relationship between vice presidents and the president and the team as a whole, and with the executive and the divisions and deputies in general. And I'd hope that we can work on that so that actually there's a much more engaged structure where everybody has much more influence. And certainly as a vice president, I would hope to have more than a minimum amount of influence. I'd hope to be listened by she or he who happens to be elected president to a greater extent than that. Moving beyond that, we have to be led by the local community. Always got to be the case. With Andrew, I've been very much involved in London with these WhatsApp groups. But the culture here may be different, the way you're structured and the way that you have your relationship with parliamentarians, MSPs, may be different, and I'm certainly open-minded as to that, and I'm anxious to learn, and certainly I will be encouraging support for what you propose, and beyond that I think we do need to enfranchise other groups as well and other communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Fighting about money. I find it remarkable. I find the whole thing remarkable. It is not good out there. I've got 4 younger kids, we'll say young kids, from 17 to 27. Only one person, 12, dropped in a TikTok. If you talk to all the children, they will tell you if they don't have one person telling them another side of the story, which most people don't, my children say they'd be anti-Semitic. Not one person just mentioned what strategy we're going to do about it. I know there's lots of other good stuff that's happening, of course there must be, but this is remarkable. We're fighting for our survival just now, and we're talking about bits of money, who's not talking, people don't come up to Scotland people don't come down to England, these committees we all do, WhatsApp groups, honestly, you've got no idea what you can see online just now. Some of you must, I'm assuming some of you must, but go go online and see some of the stuff. It is unbelievable, the stuff. And we're worrying about stuff that's not that important compared to what's going on just now. So my question, I guess, to everyone here is, what's our strategy with online stuff? Because all these young people, there's lots more young people than us. We're the old people. And we're going to be going, and all these other young people are going to be coming up. And the other less and less Jewish people, and all these, especially in Scotland, genuinely mesmerised by what I've seen tonight. I'm even mesmerised just to see a few people are here from Scotland. I've talked to a few people, it's not funny, I've talked to a few people about how it's organised in Scotland, what people to be told. I spoke to BBC, why am I not on the mailing list? Why are my friends saying to me, Paul, are you going along to this tonight? When not all of us know what's happening. There should be somebody overseeing all of this saying, we're in a war just now. It's not a question. I guess more the question is what we're all doing with social media. Because to be honest, the most important thing that can happen right now in our war against anti-Semitism is social media. Because young people have been utterly brainwashed. You can't tell them a thing. It's a waste of time. And you think, given we're supposedly in control of the media, but given we do have some of the most clever people, and we do have some of the most clever, creative people in the world, that we can't pull together a proper strategy. I don't know anything about it. I've never heard of the GLC. I was asking Adam about it. I don't know anything about it. But to think that we can together, pull a team together to actually fight against this is utter nonsense. We're deluding ourselves.
Let me try and summarise that for Owen.
That's really going to be a challenge.
Yeah. Paul was saying that he's come along as somebody who is not involved in the community and is very disappointed, use the term mesmerised, to find that we're all talking about money and who doesn't talk to who and who doesn't give to them and all this. And he's saying that somebody who's got children, he's got children between 17 and 27, and the big issue for him is TikTok and the social media and what they see on social media. He's then gone on to say that given that we are meant to be controlling the press and that we have got a reputation for creativity, what can we do to actually pull together a meaningful social media campaign to challenge on behalf of Israel and the Jewish community? Is that a good summary, Paul? Right, who's first? This time it will be Denise first.
I don't think you should leave, Paul, without somebody taking your details and dragging you in to help us out. Okay, I entirely agree with you. It's completely a psychological media war out there. There is empowerment that we can do. I'm a Facebooker personally, so there's Jewish Community UK that's got, I think, 9,000 members. For example, you can access various Israeli videos. One good example of how there was a rowback against the Metropolitan Police was the video that surfaced over the weekend that received national coverage on the swastika issue. And we were in the control room at the Met and took on the superintendent and said, you can't say that this is a Hindu symbol. You know, we were up in arms, okay? So there was direct engagement and direct rowback and direct comms. So we do need to be more strategic, and I think the board could lead and be more strategic in terms of empowering the rowback and the pushback. The hostage narrative I was involved in with basically the blow for chauffeur for hostages. My images made the JC as a photographer. The Board of Deputies is Israel video. I will speak to this. Basically, you'll see the images that I photographed, so the power of an image as well can help.
Jeremy.
Thank you very much. Paul, yeah, absolutely, no question. You should be here. You know, I mean, you should definitely. There's no question about that, and be part of this. But you're talking to someone, I'm afraid, who, while I do not have really any involvement with social media at all, apart from WhatsApp, I really don't. Being partially sighted I spend a lot of time on computers, and I tend to blow the screen up to large resolutions, etc. To spend time on TikTok, etc. would probably drive me insane. I would just never leave my computer chair. What I would do, therefore, is I would source the people who do spend time on computing, particularly the young people. I think that's what I would do. There are groups out there who are fighting anti-Semitism on TikTok and other social media platforms, and I would try and sort of bring them together so that they're all working roughly in harmony, and the board really, therefore, is more of a coordinating, it acts as a coordinating body rather than actually trying to replicate what's already happening. I think that's the way I would do it.
Thank you. Owen?
This is absolutely a wonderful question, because I must confess that I am a social media junkie. I really, really love it. It's a wonderful way to engage, to interact. There's so much positivity about it. But, and there's a real but, the amount of hate, it's truly, truly, truly shocking. I mean, I find I censor myself, preserve myself, protect myself by just not reading it. But that's not an option. We really must take this on. And particularly, I know that one of the problems we face is, we can't challenge free speech, etc., etc. But this is something we must do because it's poisoning people. Thanks.
Adrian?
Thank you. Like Paul, like you, I've got 3 children, 26, 24 and 22, who are also impacted by social media. I'm also, as I mentioned, I'm the chair of Labour Friends of Israel, and if you put Labour Friends of Israel into the search function on X at the moment, you'll see thousands of posts where we're described as Labour Friends of Genocide, and our pictures, including my own, appear with that etifaf underneath it. It's very, very unpleasant on a personal level and just for the community as a whole. So there's a number of different ways of addressing this. So first of all, on the platforms themselves, and there's been a lot of work that's gone into online harms and how we modify what is and isn't acceptable on those platforms, and there's still an enormous amount of work to do. The second, someone else mentioned, I'm sorry, I can't remember who, is we have to work with those who are in social media who are most effective for, we call them influencers, and we can't all and don't have the time to become influencers, but they're the people who have the ability, the skill and experience to try and address it. And then the third and most important thing is, as in my own case with Labour Friends of Israel, we mustn't allow ourselves to be deflected by the haters. We have to carry on, push on, do what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you. And Andrew?
Yeah, the influencers I want to talk about. So we've just, I know that Jewish News doesn't get up here particularly, but you can see it online. And in the next week or the week after, I've worked on these lists. The next list that's coming out is a top 40 creatives and design. And I'm working in the fashion industry, certain design. So I thought this was fashion designers and interior designers working on it. 20 years ago, it would be media. Half the names on it are influencers. Now, that was a shock to me. And the fact is, the police have asked me, and I work very closely with the police as the co-Jewish lead on the London Jewish Police Forum, and let's get it from the National Health as well. They want a list of Jewish influencers. We haven't got that list. We need to train people. We need to work with them. We need to employ our own influencers. That's going to be the future. So some of those names on that list, and I don't want to reveal them, have got millions of followers in the Jewish community. One of them, really at the top of the list, lost followers because he actually stood up on Israel. We've got to be careful with them because a few of them put up stuff that's fake truth. So this is about X, this is about TikTok. This is sadly not about Facebook and areas like that. We've got to realise where the young people are on Insta, TikTok, and also, and that's what this is about with the 1824s and the kids as well.
Thank you. Do we have another question? Adam again?
Yeah. I was always told be wary of what a politician tells you. So I've listened to the candidates looking to become president. I'm wary. I've listened to yourselves looking to become vice president. I must say I'm slightly disappointed that the majority of you haven't actually done your homework on the Scottish community, and you're coming here without an element of knowledge of what's going on and looking for guidance on that. That's disappointing. As Paul alluded, he talked about engagement as being extremely important. Representation is equally important in my eyes. But what I would ask you is, go back to what I started in talking about, you're wary of a politician. What would you do to influence, as far as possible, the next president to actually support Scottish Jews?
Adam is disappointed that most of you do not seem to have done your homework and have come here looking for guidance, but goes on to ask, what would you as a vice president do to influence the president with whom you serve to do more for the Scottish Jewish community? And this time we are starting with Jeremy.
Well, I mean, quite simply, the next president, whoever he or she may be, has already been here. In other words, has heard everything that's been said just now, and therefore is well aware that there are issues that are very particular to the Scottish Jewish community that need to be handled and need to be handled quickly. And so I don't think that person will actually require much influence. If that person's got any common sense at all, will not require much influence. Hopefully, whoever that person is, and if I'm privileged to be elected, then I would work with that person and others on the honorary officers panel to get up here as quickly as possible, and really start to work with the elected members of the community and see what we can do. To answer the question straightforwardly, I don't see that the president will actually need much influencing.
Thank you. Owen, you're next.
I'm going to be brave and say I think your question is a tiny little bit unfair, because I think you'd murder us if we presented that, oh, we know all about what's going on, this is what you've got. So I think we're really, the fact that we're listening, and that's the important thing, but we're telling you, in my view, that it's up to you to educate us on what the particular issues are, because at the end of the day, it's a very Scottish politics, but with nationalism and the rise of the SNP, independence on the horizon or not, it's very, very difficult. We can't be expected to understand it all. So tell us, and it's not about we haven't done our homework. We're listening. We are, really.
Adrian?
I'm a lawyer of some 35 years standing. I'm an English qualified lawyer, and I know enough to know, and I've worked on deals which includes Scottish aspects, and I know enough to know that Scottish law is very different to English law. And so even though I have familiarity with Scotland and familiarity with to a degree with Scottish law and the way that transactions work north of the border, I also know enough to know that I need a Scottish lawyer, and I need to speak to a Scottish lawyer and be led by a Scottish lawyer if there's a Scottish aspect to it. And I think it's the same here, which is that I have some knowledge of Scotland, but I would say as a matter of principle, you have to be led by the local community, and that applies in any context, but it particularly applies in Scotland for the reasons I said earlier regarding its strategic importance. So far as influence is concerned, as I said also before, I very much see myself as part of a team, and I would expect the President to see me in that way, and I think from what everyone has said across the board, actually, of all the candidates, that I think there is a strong underlying commitment to Scotland amongst all of us. Thank you.
Andrew?
I learnt this afternoon, and I spent my time learning and studying. I did a lot of research beforehand, talking to people about in the community, in Reform, where I come from, but also in other parts of the community. But I also learnt that, the connection of the community seems the Eton of Scottish politics. And I hadn't realised that the hutches, where many of the Jewish young people went to, was also the place where seemingly the leaders of the SNP and of the Scottish Labour Party also went. So over the number of people, I chair the UK programme of UJA, and I used to record the number of people who go on Israel tour each year. So Hutchins was always well on the list, but to understand the power of Hutchins and the power of the Scottish Jewish community and Hutchins is really interesting. So I now want to tap that, and I'll talk to Mike Gladstone, Mike Livingston, all the other people I can think of, and like turn around and say, actually, there's some influencing we can do here. There's some real work to work out where those people are now and how do we link them up. Very interesting. I didn't know you had the Eton of Scottish politics in quite that way.
And Denise?
I want to refute from a personal position your negative impression. I would say that we do, certainly, I want to engage with you. We do want to engage with you. We're all self-funded. We've come up here today. We're all self-funded. The board is not funded. There's room for continuous co-working as well. And your law as a lawyer is different. You've got the online legislation that's just come in. And what will be interesting is to see how we can help you and develop that. But that's just one aspect. Regarding working with the President, we are a team, and we would work, and I would work collaboratively across the divisions. But I'm also not frightened to take on the causes and speak out for Scotland, which is a beautiful country, and with committed Jews, and with its own landscape. So I hope to come up here again as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Colin's got a question.
Thank you. I'm Colin Grant. If you don't know me, I'm here representing the Jewish Telegraph. My question to the panel is, do you think that the rise in anti-Semitism, which everybody's speaking about, do you think that's connected in any way to the war between Israel and Hamas, or was it on the rise?
Colin is a reporter for the Jewish Telegraph.
Yeah.
He asks if the rise in anti-Semitism is because of the war between Israel and Hamas, or was it on the rise anyway and something that was going to happen? And you're first to win.
Right. To be honest, I really don't think so, because the reality is, in my view, anti-Semitism is always there. And if you think about it, so few people understand the history of anti-Semitism. They don't understand what the blood libel is about, the teachings of contempt. But I think the trouble is the war in Gaza is the excuse that's been used to be anti-Semitic, because it's there, but if it wasn't Gaza, it would be something else, unfortunately.
Thank you. Adrian?
Thank you, Colin. So if you look at the report of the CST and the spike in anti-Semitic attacks, most of that took place before Israel responded to the attacks on October the 7th. It was on the dates of 8th, 9th and 10th. So the anti-Semitism already increased following the Hamas attacks, when you would expect most people to be sympathetic to the Jews. And what that suggests is that the anti-Semitism was already there and it was latent. So there's a spike that follows whenever there's a conflagration in the Middle East, but it's latent, it's there. And there's a number of reasons for that. We've touched on some of those issues. Polarization and extremism has been on the rise. And that within extremism, there's room for conspiracy theory. And we know that anti-Semitism feeds on conspiracy theory. So these are big issues that we have to address. And we can't just assume that when things, please God, do quieten down in terms of the conflict, that the problem will go away or will abate. These are underlying systemic problems, and we have to have a strategy to deal with them. And that itself is multifaceted, and I'm not going to be able to get to it because there's a red card up. So thank you very much.
Andrew?
Yeah, Adrian said it's the spike. This time it shifted. And this is the point that people have got to realise. And the shift that's been going on, and it's not new, is the spikes previously were up and down like this. This is a shift into another area. So we're talking here about what happens to the Jewish kid in school, what happens to the Jewish teacher in school. We're talking what happens on campus. We're talking what happens when you go and see your doctor and they've got a sticker on there. You're talking about what's going on in the transport system. You're talking about what's going on with the police. You're talking about something out there that is exploded. And we've got to come nationally with solutions about how we bring cultural sensitivity, cultural competence. Now, this is a broken country at the moment, and there are lots of things wrong, and lots of things have to happen in our community. There's a lot of fake truth around. There's awful things out there. We're living in a world where, we need change. And we've got to stand up, though, and ensure that as the Jewish community, we're able to take on that infrastructure, take on that resilience, and change what's out there so we have a better country.
Thank you. And Denise?
I think it's been there. I think it's look, it surfaced, and it surfaced because of Gaza. Gaza has given an excuse to let out the Pandora's box of anti-Semitism and the conflation with anti-Israel commentary. But I think there's room to educate the wider public about the fact that we are a peaceful community, essentially, and our value sets are good. I think there's room for, and I'm not being idealistic, for continued interfaith relations with those who will work with us. Families and food are very similar. I noticed that from as a family lawyer. And we do have a rich culture, and there are those out there who do support us as well, and we have to stay strong and confident. Thank you.
And Jeremy.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, CST stats were showing that even before the Gaza war, normalised anti-Semitism was on a much higher plateau than, say, 10 years earlier. You know, I think Andrew's mentioned some of the points. Obviously, this country is not a happy place to be. When I say this country, I'm talking about now the UK as a whole is not a happy place to be. And indeed, democracy in the West is under attack. I personally feel that the secularization in the West and therefore the moral relativism that is sweeping across is basically undermining family structures and general values that were taken for granted until very recently. And people are generally lost and rootless. And therefore, this is something that we're going to have to cope with. It's going to something we're going to have to work with other groups to cope with. And it's a very big issue, far bigger, as Adrian said, that we can deal with in 1 minute.
Thank you. Now, when Michael welcomed you all here this evening, he said we'd be finishing at 9:30. And if we're going to finish at 9:30, that means we have to move on to the closing statements. And the first closing statement is with Jeremy.
I am, at the moment, Chair of the Regional Deputies Assembly and Council, and I seek to be Vice President. Do you want a regional deputy at the top table who has successfully fought to increase the board's presence in the regions? Do you want a fighter who has removed barriers to regional deputies' involvement? Do you want someone unconnected with any political movement that can unite deputies behind an agreed agenda? Then, if you want that sort of person, please vote for me for Vice President. Thank you very much.
Denise next.
I stand before each of you as a proud, committed Jewess. And I would want to use my skill set as an experienced deputy and as a skilled lawyer to assist, protect, promote and preserve your community and way of life, and also engage with you and work as a team player with whoever is elected as president and with co-presidents, and also with all of the deputies, so that the Board of Deputies continues to be the most prominent, democratically organised and representative body of British, including in particular Scottish Jews. And I thank you all for coming here tonight to listen to us, and I hope that our conversation continues and our engagement continues, because we need you as much as possible. Thank you.
Adrian.
First of all, thank you very much, Philip, for chairing this session, and thank all of you for coming. I've really benefited from this evening. Sometimes the things people have said are painful, but I think that's really important. It's important that we hear what people have to say, and it helps our thinking, and it helps us to evolve in the way we are. I'd also like to thank my fellow candidates as well, from whom I'm also learning an awful lot. Everything we do has to have the community at our heart. It has to be at the heart of what we do. We have to take the community with that. And that community is across the UK. And Scotland is an incredibly important part of that. Coupled with that, you need seasoned, experienced individuals who are going to take on these roles as HOs. They are tough. They are tough roles to fulfill, but it's incredibly important that you have that. And we have to ensure, likewise, that we have the deputies fully engaged through meaningful consultation. And I think that together, as Paul alluded to, we have to ensure we have a strong democratic voice for the Jewish people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Andrew?
The task is great. We've got a lot to do. We can't desist from the task, and upstairs is pretty impatient that we get on with it. And as such, I really feel that we've started to come up here. We listen to your deputies often at meetings, but listening to you is very, very different. And I think that when we're talking about the Glasgow community, Edinburgh, and you talk about how the community is spread across Scotland, Ephraim and others have mentioned this, there is a change. We saw it in England and Wales the same way. There's been a spread of our community. We've got new models. We need new leaders. We need to work with you. It's a partnership. And there's a partnership when we work outside. Collaboration, co-delivery, that's what I'm about. And I hope you'll elect me, and I do look forward to working with you.
Last but not least, Owen.
Thank you. I'm very, very conscious from listening to you this evening that my particular campaign to be elected as a VP on a disability inclusion ticket, for want of a better word, may appear as a little bit of a luxury, maybe even self-indulgent, or something that we can't afford to do at the moment because of the particular problem that you're facing. But I'm convinced that there's going to be no let-up, as far as the board is concerned, in combating anti-Semitism, but there is plenty of room to take on the issue of disability exclusion, and it's something that we need to do, I think, sooner or later, so let's do it now. Thank you.
Well, that brings us to the end of the meeting. I'd like to thank the vice presidential candidates for coming up and for speaking. I'd like to thank Michael and Sarah for coming up, and our IT people for supporting us. But most of all, I'd like to thank you all for coming and actually asking the questions and listening.